Welcome everyone to Alula Education. Today it's all about repetition, so shall we start? As usual, we start by stating our learning objectives, and today our students will be able to identify a figure of speech or rhetorical device, which is repetition, develop understanding of all of its features, and we're going to explore repetition, especially in poetry. So the outline is going to be as follows. We're going to start with a starter, which is the pleasure of poetic patterns. And then we're going to continue. We're going to come up with our own definition of repetition based on the starter. We're going to identify the use of repetition. And please note that these will be done by your students themselves as a conclusion. Then we're going to explore a bit repetition with a lot of poem analysis, and we're going to have our conclusion to wrap up the lesson. We're going to start our session with a small YouTube video, and it's a very nice video in which we're going to explore the pleasure of poetic patterns, and we're gonna finalize everything by the end of the video, come up with a conclusion, and guess what is repetition and what we're going to talk about. Before we actually start with the video, I want you to take a deep breath and I want you to relax and follow with the video. The video is going to ask you to take a deep breath, follow patterns, and focus. So please follow all the instructions given in the video so we can maximize the outcome and totally immerse in the thing that they're trying to tell you.
Just for a moment, focus on your breath. In slowly, out slowly, in slowly, out. The same pattern repeats within every one of us. And consider your pulse. The beat is built into the very fabric of our being. Simply put, we are creatures of rhythm and repetition. It's central to our experience. Rhythm and repetition. Rhythm and repetition. On and in and on and out. And we delight in those aspects every day. In the rhythm of a song, the beat of the drum, the nod of your head, or in the repetition of soup cans, the rows of an orchard. Rhythm and repetition are often used as the building blocks for poetry. There's the rhythm of language, created by syllables and their emphasis, such as, so long as men can breathe or eyes can see. And there's the repetition of language at multiple levels, the repetition of letters. So long lives this, and this gives life to thee. Of sounds, breathe, see, thee, and of words. With so many uses, repetition is one of the poet's most malleable and reliable tools. It can lift or lull the listener, amplify or diminish the line, unify or diversify ideas. In fact, even rhythm itself, a repeated pattern of stressed syllables, is a form of repetition. Yet, for all its varied uses, too much repetition can backfire. Imagine writing the same sentence on the blackboard 20 times, again and again and again and again. Or imagine a young child clamoring for her mother's attention. Mom, mom, mommy, mom, mom. Not exactly what we might call poetry.
This is it for the YouTube video. I know that it's a very nice YouTube video. Here is a link to the video. If you want to further elaborate, watch more, or repeat the video, you're free to do so via this link. So we have all of the answers ready. Let's think, take a minute, and tell me, what do you think this lesson is about? Basically, they tackled one main important thing in the video, which is repetition. So basically, we're going to talk about a very important thing, which is repetition. Now, you saw that throughout the video, they tackled repetition in many areas. They started talking about repetition in life, then they moved to defining repetition, then they gave you some examples in poetry. So it was a very well-structured video. And if I ask you, where can we actually find repetition? Well, the answer is repetition is found everywhere. So you can find it in your own bodies, in your lives, you can find it at work, you can find it when dealing with others, so you can find it in poetry, so it's all over the world. You can find repetition anywhere. So let's have a few examples together and some important questions that we need to analyze after watching the video. Number 1, what is repetition? Number 2, give some examples of repetition. And here I want some repetition rhythms that we can find only in our lives. So leave poetry aside and think about the examples that they provided concerning repetition in our own lives. Then I want, why do poets use repetition? And I want some examples of repetition in poetry. Now, after we're done with the analysis of the previous video, all of the questions are answered. Now, let's clarify the term repetition, and another YouTube video is there to help us with the definition, features, and use.
And today I'm going to talk to you about a poetic tool that poets use called repetition. If you've ever read a poem out loud, you notice that poems tend to have a musical quality to them. A tool that poets use to create rhythm and sound in their poems is by using repetition. What repetition is it means to repeat a word, phrase, or line. Let's look at the poem Click Beetle by Mary Ann Hoberman and look for that repeating word, beetle. Click beetle, clack beetle, snap jack black beetle, glint glitter glare beetle, pin it in your hair beetle, tack it to your shawl beetle, wear it at the ball beetle, shine shimmer spark beetle, glisten in the dark beetle, listen to it crack beetle, click beetle, clack beetle. So they repeat beetle over and over and over again. It kind of has this rhythm to it.
So here is a screenshot of the poem so we can actually go deeper into the analysis and see where is repetition there and why is repetition used in this poem. Now, as you can see, it's very clear what the poem is talking about, and you can see the picture. I know that most of you ladies are disgusted, even I am very disgusted and scared, but what can we do? So it's called a Click Beetle. So the title is Click Beetle by Mary Ann Hoberman, and you see that the whole poem is resolving about one main thing. You already guessed what the thing is. Very easy, very simple. It's there in the title, which is the beetle. So this is the main word that it's used there, and you can see that they started with the title Click Beetle, Clack Beetle. So beetle is repeated in the first verse and in the second verse, and then throughout the whole poem you can see that they kept on repeating beetle, beetle in every single stanza from the beginning of the poem until the end. All verses, they all include the word beetle. So, and if you can look deeper a bit into the poem, you can see that the poem has also repetition in the first and second verses, the last and before last ones. Never to mention, Beetle is repeated. On top of this, we have 2 verses repeated, click Beetle, clack Beetle, and it ends with click Beetle and clack Beetle. So we found 2 repetitions here. The first one is the word Beetle, and the second one, you can see it's actually the yellow one, in which 2 verses are repeated at the beginning and ending of the poem. So Beetle is stressed out. Why is Beetle stressed out? Why are we using repetition in the poem? It's very clear that we are using repetition in the poem to create a very nice rhythm. So you can see here that Beetle is mentioned at the end of every single verse, and thus a very nice rhythm is created. Imagine reading the poem, click Beetle, clack Beetle, snapjack, black Beetle. So you see that there's a rhythm there, and it matches in the beginning and until the end of the poem.
Paired together with rhyme. Repetition can also help emphasize an idea the poet wants you to really concentrate on. When the poem repeats a phrase or line or word, it lets you know this is really important. So when we look at the poem Car Sick, I want you to think about what is the recurring theme, what is the repetitional phrase, and what is that main idea that the poet really wants you to take away from this. Car sick. I'm car sick. Open a window. I'm car sick. Take this pill. I'm car sick. Rest your eyes. I'm car sick. Shh, be still. I'm car sick. Drink some ginger ale. I'm car sick. Can you try to wait? I'm car sick. Now we're almost there. I feel better. Darn. Too late. So, do you think the author was car sick? Well, yes, because that was the repeating phrase. So that was what the poet really wanted to emphasize in this poem.
Taking a deeper look into the analysis of this poem, it's a very nice one called Car Sick. Okay, we can't choose orange, it will not show. So for Car Sick, you have the title up here. Always the poems that we are tackling, they always start with a title, and this is how important it's there to have a title. So we start with I'm car sick, open a window. I'm car sick, take this pill. I'm car sick, rest your eyes. I'm car sick, shh, be still. I'm car sick, drink some ginger ale. Car sick, can you try to wait? I'm car sick, now we're almost there. And the last one, I feel better, darn too late. Now, as you can see throughout the poem, it's a very cute poem, and we have one sentence that keeps on repeating. There's a verse that's always there, which is I'm car sick. So unlike the first poem that we tackled, we had only one word repeated and quite 2 verses repeated this time. One verse is repeated throughout the whole poem, I'm car sick. Now, why do you think the poet actually had this repetition throughout the poem? Just because the whole poem is about being car sick, and it's very important to know that this poem is tackling the writer being car sick and thus stressing the importance of this sentence, of this verse throughout the poem. So her whole idea is just to emphasize the importance or the thing being talked about here, the theme, which is being car sick throughout a trip that the writer or the poet is actually going through. So we saw a repetition on only one word. We saw a repetition of a verse. Now let's look into a bigger poem and see other ways of repeating and why it is being used.
Let's look at how some other poets do this. My dog, he is an ugly dog. I want you to pause the video and see if you can read this out loud to yourself. and see if you can find the repeating phrases that are throughout this poem.
So as you can see here, all of the poems that we just tackled are full of repetition, either a word, a sentence, and here let's look and try to find the repeated sentences, the repeated words, what is being highlighted there, is it creating rhythm, and take a deeper look and analyze this poem. Okay, so here is a screenshot that we can work on, and you can see that they already told you that we have repetition in this poem. We're just trying to locate the repetition and what is actually being repeated in the poem. So take a deeper look into the poem, try reading the poem, and tell me, where is the repetition found in this poem? So if we look at the first stanza, which is from my dog until there, let's read and try to locate the repetition throughout the poem. My dog, he is an ugly dog. He's put together wrong. His legs are much too short for him. His ears are much too long. My dog, he is a scruffy dog. He's missing clumps of hair. His face is quite ridiculous. His tail is scarcely there. So this is the first stanza. Moving to the second one, we have my dog. He is a dingy dog. His fur is full of fleas. He sometimes smells like dirty socks. He sometimes smells like cheese. My dog, he is a noisy dog. He's hardly ever still. He barks at almost anything. His voice is loud and shrill. And moving to the last stanza, stanza 3. My dog, he is a stupid dog. His mind is slow and thick. He's never learned to catch a ball. He could not fetch a stick. My dog, he is a greedy dog. He eats enough for 3. His belly bludges to the ground. He is the dog for me. So let's now try to locate repetition in all of these stanzas. Where is the thing, the sentence, maybe the word that is being repeated? Now, if you look, they started the poem with my dog, he is an ugly dog. Then they said, my dog, he is a scruffy dog. Then my dog, he is a clingy dog. Then I have my dog, he is a noisy dog. Continuing to the last stanza, my dog, he is a stupid dog. My dog, he is a greedy dog. So you can see that the sentence is actually repeated with only one change, which is the adjective describing the dog. So they first described the dog with the adjective ugly, and then they continued to change the description, but the format is one, and this is one of the sentences that are actually repeated throughout the poem. And if you look deeper also, you have a few repetitions that you can find inside the poem itself. Like for example, this one here, he sometimes smells like dirty socks, and he sometimes smells like cheese. So you can see that he sometimes smells like is actually repeated. So this is it for the poem. You see how repetition is making the poem elevated, just like we discussed that time, and it's making the poem much more interesting.
Okay, so if you read this out loud to yourself, you find that my dog, he is the repeated phrase. And across the poem, it changes slightly. My dog, he is an ugly dog. My dog, he is a scruffy dog. My dog, he is a dingy dog, and so on. But that repeating phrase kind of breaks it up into sections, into stanzas, and it also lets you know that his dog is many different things to him, but by the end, he is the dog that is right for him. So I want you to find any repetition in the poems that you read today. And I want you to think, why did the author do that? Does the repetition create a rhythm like the click beetle, clack beetle? Or does it emphasize an idea like I am car sick? Why does the author choose to use repetition?
Okay, so this is it in relation to this video in which we saw repetition in general, then we saw a lot of poems, and now we can have our conclusion with the definition. So let's try to think a bit, gather our thoughts, and define the term repetition. So what is the definition of repetition? Now, I know that the idea is cleared up for all. When I'm talking about repetition, that means I'm talking about a certain word, sentence, or phrase, and these words, these sentences, or these phrases are written more than once in a poem. So they are found throughout the poem several times, even if there are words, sentences, or phrases, just like the examples that we tackled before with the online video. Now we reach the final stage of today's lesson. We're almost there. We have all our ideas together, so let's group everything into a very nice conclusion. Why do we use repetition, or why do poets use repetition in their poems? Now, if we think about the video that we watched, all of the poems that we analyzed, all of the answers are there. So let's look and see. Repetition is used in poetry to create a pattern. So in the poem, you'll find a very nice pattern that is created. Maybe stanzas, they start with the same verse. Maybe they end with the same one. Maybe you have a repeated one, just like the one with the dog. My dog is. So it's actually creating a pattern throughout the poem, even if the poem is actually one stanza. Now, the second reason is increase rhythm, and this is one of the most important things in relation to repetition, especially with the ones that we tackled. The beetle, the click beetle one. So click beetle, clack beetle, we said that we have rhythm in there, and throughout the whole poem, the word beetle kept on repeating and thus creating a very nice rhythm in the poem. Then we move to the third one, which is strengthening feelings, ideas, and mood in the poem. So when you hear this one phrase or this one word or verse being repeated again, and again, you'll feel that the poet is trying to stress. So he's trying to relay all of his feelings, maybe to you, all of his ideas that he's thinking about, and the whole mood of the poem. So by repeating, and then repeating, the poet feels that he's letting all of his feelings out, all of his ideas out, and the mood. And thus, as readers, we are able to capture the whole thing that he's trying to tell us. And last but not least, it's to stress ideas. So maybe it's an idea that he's trying to share, so he wants to stress, or he wants to highlight this one idea that he is talking about. So these are the main reasons for us to find repetition in poetry, and you see it's a very important rhetorical device to be used to create a pattern, increase rhythm, strengthen feelings, ideas, and mood in the poem, and stress ideas. Now, depending on the word or phrase that is repeated, repetition allows for more emphasis to be placed on certain themes, ideas, or objects. And I made sure to insert this in a really separate sentence just because it's very important to keep in mind that the word being repeated, the phrase being repeated, or the sentence, it allows the poet to be in control of the poem. It allows the poet to really let everything out, and it allows the reader to better understand, better grasp the situation, and better understand what's in there in between the lines and everything that the poet is trying to convey in his poem. So you see how this is very important to get to know a bit more about the poem and about the poet himself or herself with this amazing style. Here are some of the resources that I used for today's session, and you see that both of them are YouTube ones. You can check the channels where I got these videos. They are really cute and really nice. Now, this is it for today's repetition lesson by Alula Education. Stay safe, everyone, and see you next time in another lesson.